a lot of the people I work with who are ADHD entrepreneurs, they struggle with that. They struggle with valuing themselves. Sometimes even struggle with putting time into their business, like that, like thinking that they are worth their own time.
Mhm.
Hi, I'm Jen Barnes, and you're about to experience how to ditch the old ways of doing things, embrace your neurodivergence, learn tips and tricks to function optimally, and love yourself, neurodivergence and all. Welcome to the Self Loved Woman podcast. Hey, it's Jen. I'm so glad you're here. Today is a really special episode. We have our second guest, and the best part is she's a friend and colleague of mine who's going to talk to us about empowering wealth today. Her name is Dr. Ashlee Greer. And Ashlee, I'm so excited you're here today. I'm just so happy you're here. Do you want to maybe share a little bit about yourself?
Oh, Jen, I am so excited to be here with you
I'm
today. You
so
are just such a
happy.
delightful light in this world. And I'm so glad to be able to talk to you and your audience about wealth and about wealth creation. So, I'm Dr. Ashlee Greer, and I'm a former psychologist who used to specialize in trauma and anxiety and the mind body connection. And I transitioned into being an entrepreneur about 10 years ago, building a business from scratch. And at this point, I travel the world. I currently live in Bali, and I
So
really help
awesome.
people embody a feeling of safety and creating wealth and generating more wealth and success in their life and creating a business that lights them up and feels easy and playful and like a video game, and creating wealth from this place that I get to create something in a conscious way that supports the world and becoming a better place. And by creating more wealth and success, everything around me gets better, not just for me, but for everyone in my life, in the world around me. And it's just such a fun, awesome thing to do. And I love every day of my life.
Yeah, your life is awesome. Ashlee's like all over the world. I'm like, where in the world are you right now? She's like, oh, I'm in Australia. Oh, I'm in Bali. Just going everywhere. It's kind of like I can't remember where you're going next month, but you're like going everywhere. So it's pretty cool.
uh,
So anyway, I'm super excited to have Ashlee here. I've been in her Empowering Wealth program, which I have to say is amazing. We'll talk more about that at the end. You make things so much easier, Ashlee. You make things flow and make sense. And really, I've found a lot of shifts in myself since working with you on empowering wealth. And I wanted to share that wisdom with my listeners because it's such beautiful stuff. And so one of the things I want to talk about first, because I think this is where a lot of people probably are, is, and I know this is where I was when I first enrolled in your course, is what are some of the things that keep people stuck? Like, what are some of the limiting beliefs that are common for people? Because a lot of times we'll be doing all this stuff. Like, this is what I noticed in myself. This is why I came to your program. I actually knew Ashlee from somewhere else, another program we were both in. Although we go way back, we turns out we went to grad school, right? You weren't doing your PhD at St. Thomas. You were doing your
my
master's at,
master's.
yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So randomly we were in this program and we learned that that we were both doing graduate school at the same time. We graduated on the same rainy day from the University of St.
Yep.
Thomas in 2005, which is insane. Me in social work and you in psychology, but still it's just like so crazy. But we didn't know each other until we met in another program. But um
Yeah. 15 years later.
Fi
How
15
crazy.
years later. Isn't that crazy? That's just, like, insane. It's totally random. I love stuff like that. Like, that kinda stuff just lights me up. But I decided to engage with Ashlee's course because what I noticed is I was doing all this work, and I was putting great stuff out there, and 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 people weren't buying from me. And I'm like, "What is this?" And I started to recognize some signs that part of what was getting in the way was my own issues around money. That I was putting my issues on money onto potential buyers from me. And I saw that that was impacting the energy I was putting out, and it was making it less likely for people to engage with my programs or whatever it is. And so I'd love if you could talk a bit about what you notice about how that shows up, maybe some limiting beliefs, because that's what I have found so invaluable about working with you. And I wonder if you could speak to some of those common limiting beliefs.
Yeah, absolutely. So, what we're talking about here is really, money mindset. It's our entire kind of philosophy, beliefs, emotions, the way we interact with money, the way we feel that money has a presence in our life. The problem is that for so many of us, we basically give money all of the power. We believe that we will be happy once we have money. We will be successful once we have money. We have value once we have money. But that ends up becoming sort of a self-fulfilling prophecy because then we're constantly seeking the thing, money, in order to validate our value. And it's by holding our value that we actually can create more money, ironically. So we end up
Yeah,
kind of putting it words, if that makes sense.
that's
And so
fascinating.
what ends up feeding into this so often are, there's multiple layers, but one of, like you were saying, one of the key points are these limiting beliefs. And I'm very specific about calling them limiting beliefs versus money blocks. You may have heard the term money blocks
Can you
before,
say a bit
right?
more about that? Yeah, I've heard the term money blocks. Can you say a little bit more about that?
Yeah, so money blocks and limiting beliefs are the same thing, but I believe in the power of language. Our subconscious mind believes everything we say to it. And so when I say the word block to you, what comes to mind?
It's walls. It's like
Yep.
keeping things away, keeping things out.
It's something that stopped it. It's something that is insurmountable, right? You
Yeah,
can't get around it.
insurmountable. Yes.
Right.
Impenetrable, whatever that word is.
Yeah. And so when we call something a money block, that means I can't get around it and I can't solve it and I can't find a solution to move and flow around it. When we call something a limit, well, guess what? Limits are made to be broken. We
Uh-huh.
can move through. And so just by shifting that simple phrase of from a money block to a limiting belief around money, suddenly I have opportunities to solve this and to find solutions and to find new ways of being that create all this opportunity for me to have the sales that I want, for me to make more money, for me to break through my income ceiling that I've been stuck at, for me to stop under earning, or whatever it might be that I've felt has been sort of this sticky thing that I've been encountering. Same with that word sticky versus stuck. Stuck, I'm
Yeah.
stuck. Sticky, I'm
Yeah.
moving forward.
Yeah, sticky is yeah, there is. Language does have so much power and you and I both with our backgrounds know that there's neurobiological impacts of the language that we speak. So that matters. I heard you say another word in there and it was income ceiling. And I know that's something I was really struggling with. I wonder if you could speak. Do you see that a lot with people that show up? I mean, like what does that tend to show up like in your work when you see people
I
with
see that a ton.
yeah.
So basically what happens is, we have an internal thermostat for what
Mm,
feels safe to us. And that exists in terms of happiness, that exists in terms of wealth and money. And so when we have this, internal thermostat, the ceiling at which it feels safe, when we exceed that ceiling, our subconscious mind, part of us will pull us back below that ceiling and we'll go down again. And you know what I mean? Like, let's say we hit our 5K month or our 10K month or whatever it might be, and that's exceeded what we've done before. If part of us doesn't feel safe creating that because of micro traumas from the past, because of limiting beliefs, because of, these deep emotions that we feel around money, because of fear we're going to lose it, whatever it might be, what happens is we pull ourselves back below that feeling into that safety zone again.
mm,
That's what an income ceiling is. It's a safety zone. And then we wonder why we can't break through. Well, we can't break through because of all of these different things that we're talking about today, like the limiting beliefs, like all of these stories from the past, all of the stuff that isn't us, the subconscious junk in our trunk, as I like to call it,
yeah, yeah.
you know?
Well, and I wonder if that could ever look like not just under earning, but also overspending when there's too much money. Because I'll catch myself doing that. Like I'm like, oh, I'm doing pretty well, and then I'll go spend all this money. I'm like, what in the hell was I thinking? Like, you know what I mean? Like I'm finally like I could use this to pay for this or to put some more money in savings or to I don't know whatever. And instead I'll go I don't know, spend $200 at Target on nothing. I mean, no offense to
Right.
Target. I love Target. My brother-in-law works at Target corporate, so it supports my nieces. That's great. But like, I'd rather not spend 200 unnecessary dollars at Target and instead use that money more intentionally. And so I wonder, can it show up that way too?
Absolutely. It can absolutely show up that way. It can
Mm.
absolutely show up in terms of going into behaviors that are not supporting us, things like gambling or overspending or,
Oh,
wasting money. Maybe you go out and you suddenly buy the latest gadget that breaks the next week or whatever it might be because you're so used to not having money that A, you want to spend it before it runs away and you lose it. So you're like, that comes from that lack mindset of, I don't think I'm going to be able to hold on to it. Secondly, it might come from a belief that you want to treat yourself and that that's the only way to feel good instead of feeling good while you're creating the money. But thirdly, yes, it's another way to keep yourself within your income ceiling. And, we oftentimes will find ourselves suddenly a new bill comes up. Why is my car breaking down all of a sudden that I have money? Why is this happen? Right? Does that ever happen to you?
yes. Oh my God. Not to me so much anymore, but I have clients that I'm like, oh my gosh, in fact, the guy who's working on my garage, that keeps happening. And I'm like, this dude, I'm
Right?
like, what is
Right?
going on? Like, it's one thing after another. And I'm like, there's some mindset shit going on there. It's like, cause like that, how does that many things happen to one person? Like,
Exactly, exactly. And sometimes, of course, things happen in the
yes,
world and you have
yes,
to understand that sometimes
yes,
things happen. But other times, we're running into the wall face first and wondering why our face hurts. You know,
yes. Yeah, it's right. There's certainly times and reasons stuff happens. But yeah, sometimes it's totally this money mindset stuff.
right. And so, like you're saying, you end
Fascinating.
up going out and doing those impulsive behaviors, those impulsive old school behaviors, that for folks, particularly with ADHD, we tend to really like that dopamine hit,
Uh-huh,
that
that's what I was
feeling
just
of like,
thinking.
"Ooh," right? And spending can do that a little bit. Sorry, in Australia. You can bet on like horses at the bar, or you know what I mean. You're
What?
out having a beer and you can bet on a horse at the bar, and so you go do that, and suddenly you talk to somebody next to you and they've lost $2,000, and you're like, "What is going
What?
on?" Yeah, yeah, it's crazy. But these are the kind of impulsive behaviors that we have where we go out and we buy dinner for all of our friends because we suddenly can. And it's like, well, how could I have invested that in my business to create more wealth?
Yeah.
And how can I also feed my dopamine system so that I get the sort of hits that I feel like are really important to me, perhaps with ADHD, because those hits
Right.
are important to us. We
Right.
need to be able to feed that pleasure and feeling good, as well as investing in ourselves and our future and a solid rocks, foundation where we can create wealth and we're not constantly just stuck beneath our income ceiling, which is where we
Yeah.
started.
That word pleasure, I've heard you use that a lot. And for a lot of people, I don't think we link money and pleasure. Like
Mhm.
like I think we think only rich people link money and pleasure. Like they go on
Right.
these lavish vacations and whatever. And I think for a lot of people, money can feel stressful. And I wonder about making those shifts because certainly if we view money as stressful, then money will be stressful. And
Yep.
so,
100%. Like this is really the core of my philosophy with everything that I work with my clients on is that we have to motivate ourselves from a place of pleasure, from a place of play, from a place of fun. Because if
mhm,
we don't, whatever it is that we're creating is going to feel hard, heavy, like it's going to be hard work. And guess what happens? When we feel like something is going to be hard and heavy and a lot of hard work, whether it's success in our business or generating more income, our subconscious mind is going to feel as though that's a stressor. I don't want that. That's going to make me suffer. That's going to be horrible. I've got to keep myself safe from that. So I'm going to hold myself back from making more money, from being more successful, because this is now a threat because it feels
yeah,
hard, heavy. I'm going to be overwhelmed. I'm going to be burnt out. I'm going to be super stressed out and pull my hair out. It's not worth it. So when
right.
we motivate ourselves from these, feeling good, from reward, from pleasure, what happens is it becomes so much easier to create these things, to create wealth, to move through these, income ceilings, to create the success in our business, to make sales, all of this stuff. And our energy is different with all of these things as well. But you bring up a good point of how do you actually do that when we've been convinced our whole life that the way to, that pleasure is only for if I get to go on vacation for a week. That's the
Yeah.
only way that money feels pleasurable.
Yeah.
We need to focus on the micro savorings of our financial reality in the here and now, which
Yeah.
allow us to create pleasure from the small little wins and gratitudes of what we're experiencing. So I know you and I were just talking about how much we love coffee.
Yeah. Yeah.
You go to the coffee shop and you get that beautiful mocha and you just sit there and you go, this is the best $5 I have ever spent. Oh my gosh, this is so good.
Right.
And that is pleasure in spending money. That is pleasure in what money brings you. That
Yeah.
$5, finding that dollar on the ground and being like, yes,
Yeah.
awesome. Celebrating dime that comes into your bank account. We look over the small little pleasures that are available to us. I mean, and how often do we save things like the nice candle that we bought at the shop that
Mm-hmm.
we could go and savor and enjoy? And it doesn't cost a lot of money
Mm-mm.
to enjoy what money can bring into our lives.
And you make a good point, because a lot of times when our ADHD impulsivity shows up, if we're not mindful and we're not working with it in certain ways, I think people can find themselves buying lots and lots of stuff, or big stuff, or expensive stuff, and overlooking how much pleasure we can get from that. In my mind, Caribou Coffee mocha, because they use real chocolate chips. I mean, come on. Caribou Coffee owes me like affiliate money, by the way. I mention them all the time. But anyway, like, good Minnesota company. But whatever it is, right? Like when we don't savor those things, I think that's when we need Amazon to be dropping shit off at our house every day just to get a dopamine hit. Whereas maybe if we were able to appreciate those smaller pleasures, we wouldn't need to drop a few $100s at Target or Amazon.
Well, absolutely. I mean, and if you think, I mean, you're really the expert in ADHD, but like at least with my own experience with it myself, I'm undiagnosed,
Right.
but from the time I was about 5, it's been
Right.
like she is way too loud and energetic, and oh my God, she won't sit still, and will she look at her paper and not scribble on the walls, kind of a thing. But anyway, to get back to what I was saying is that
That's why we're
I
friends.
think, yeah, right, because we jam this way.
Right. Anyway, carry on.
Is that like I think that we're always in a race to find the next exciting thing, the next
Yeah.
sensation to experience,
Yeah.
because we're not taking time to actually fully experience the sensations that are available to us,
Right.
you know?
Right. Well, and you and I are both trauma experts too. And so, like, one of the things that is really common with ADHD and also autism is low interoception, which is that ability to notice our sensations and name them or label them or have a sense of them. And so it makes sense that, I mean, in the work we do in my programs, we build interoception actually, because it is something that we need to enjoy, to be able to notice and enjoy the pleasure, just in the first place, right?
Absolutely. That's so interesting to think about how, not being aware of what's going on inside of us becomes sort of this problematic factor that results in us constantly acting impulsively and doing things which aren't in our best
Yeah.
interest, whether it comes to money or our businesses or whatever it might be. So
Yeah.
that's so interesting.
Yeah, it's fascinating. And one of the things I've talked about on the podcast, so some of my listeners might be like, "Yes, Jen, we know you think this." But one of the things
Mhm.
I've shared is I'm really curious about the like chicken egg thing with this, because we know that with ADHD, especially if you were undiagnosed, there is a lot of trauma. And it may not be like trauma that people go, "Oh my gosh," like childhood sexual abuse or something. If you said that happened to you, people would be like, "Oh yeah, that's trauma." And the things that happen with someone with ADHD, the constant criticism and shaming, and why can't you just do this, and you can pay attention here but you can't pay attention there, and why are you scribbling on the walls, Ashlee, or putting me on the chalkboard in 8th grade for talking, like legit that happened,
Yeah.
and all that is traumatic. And like you were saying, our body doesn't know the difference between a tiger or a money mindset thing. So it's like, so what I think is, like, how much of it is people on the autism spectrum and ADHD have interoceptive issues because that's inherent in those neurodivergences. I don't know if you understand, anyway, whatever. Or is it a function of trauma? Because we know that interoception is low in people with complex trauma histories. So I don't know, but that's something I think a lot about.
Well, it's really interesting because I mean, I would, at least to me, it makes sense that we would lose trust in ourselves when we're constantly told not to trust ourselves
Yeah,
because
when
we're
you're told you're a
wrong.
dumbass, eventually you start believing you're a dumbass.
Exactly. And so then you stop tuning in and you stop being aware because you think other people have the tickets on what's going on inside of you and you don't. You know what I
Yeah,
mean? They understand it better than you do. So why
right.
why bother?
Right. Why would I
Yeah,
trust my internal messages? I think
right.
I think
And you're so right when it comes, sorry,
oh,
go ahead.
you go ahead.
But you're so right in terms of these little micro traumas that occur to us. The minute you said you having my name written on the board in 8th grade, I'm like, oh, I think that happened to me. I remember in 5th grade, the teacher encouraged everyone in my class to make fun of me and tell me I was nosy because I was paying too much attention to what everyone else was doing. She encouraged everyone to flick their nose at me and go, nosy, the teacher.
Cool.
And right. And so what that taught me for a long time was don't ask questions.
Right. Yeah.
And these are the kind of micro traumas that occur to us because of our behavioral stuff, because of who we were in the world, that impact us
Right.
on all these crazy ways. Because even something like that I just shared, how would that impact money? That would impact money because I'm not going to get curious about my money because somehow I think that makes me too nosy, or maybe I'm digging in where I'm not supposed to dig in.
Right.
Like, and we just get taught these things and we don't even realize that they can have impact on money, on success, on all of these different levels
Yeah.
because it doesn't seem related. How is a teacher saying nosy related to money? Well,
Right. Because it doesn't have to be that
curiosity.
you had trauma with money. It could be,
Right.
right? Like it could be that, like, your family lost their house when you were young or something, or you grew up in poverty. But it could be
Right.
this, right?
In fact, most of the time it isn't related to money. Most of the time it's related to, like your
Oh.
parents got divorced, or, you know what I mean? Or you were made fun of in the schoolyard, or you fear that, you're going to be judged because you were unpopular when you were 15 years old,
Wait,
or
walk us
whatever it
through some
might
of that.
be.
Walk us through some of that. So, like, your parents get divorced and you have money issues. Say more. Like, how could that
So
track it for us?
fear of abandonment is a huge thing when it comes to money. So if you had someone leave your life when you were young, let's say through your parents getting divorced, let's say through an illness, somebody died, let's say even something like someone gets mental illness and they're no longer really available to you emotionally,
Yeah.
you get convinced that good things in your life will leave. And if
Oh,
money feels like a good thing, you will convince yourself that money will leave too. So why bother making more?
oh my gosh.
Yep.
That's huge. I kind of want to
Yep.
ask everyone listening and being like, did you hear that? Like, that's huge. That's huge. Okay, now track
Absolutely.
one more down for me. Track one more down. Like, you're afraid people don't like you in high school, or it was another thing you said. Like, you said something like that.
Yeah. So
Help me track that
Yeah,
one. Is
so
that related to abandonment?
you're 15 years old, you're unpopular in school, maybe you get a little bit of a little bit bullied, or maybe people made fun of you because you're into, I don't know, anime or something like
Right.
that, right?
Yeah.
What you're learning at that point is that who I am and how I show up in the world isn't of value unless other people approve of me, because unfortunately when you're 15, that's how you feel. And
Right.
so how would that impact you as an entrepreneur and earning money? You would pin your value in the world upon other people's approval and how other people are reflecting your value back to you instead of holding it within yourself, which would reflect in your pricing, which would reflect in your ability to hold your value when you tell people how much you charge, which would reflect in your value, your ability to invest in yourself in your
Yeah.
personal growth. It would reflect in your ability to invest in stocks because maybe you don't trust yourself because those people told me that I was wrong in who I am at this tender age. And part of me still believes them, even though my conscious brain doesn't believe it. This little 15-year-old inside of me believes it, which you do a lot of that work with the different
Yeah, with
pieces.
IFS, internal family systems, and the
Yeah.
parts work. Well, and it's interesting because I've worked with that 15-year-old part a lot around this. And so as you're talking, I'm like, this is me. And I still sometimes undercharge, which is something that y'all are going to get an email about soon. So listen up. But anyway, no, but
I love it.
that's fascinating because that is interesting. I think about, I wasn't exactly like the most popular of 15-year-olds. I was, didn't drink and was smart and did well in school and prioritized learning. Those aren't things and was a bit of a know-it-all. So those tend not to be things that make you popular.
You know what's interesting? Just as an aside,
Yeah.
I feel like entrepreneurs in general have a greater majority of not being popular when they were younger.
Really? That's
I don't,
fascinating.
that's just, it's
That's
anecdotal,
interesting
my
because
belief.
I'm thinking of someone we both know who's in that situation. He talks about it all the time. Huh. That is
And I
fascinating.
think it's because it trains us to follow our own path. As scary as it is, we have been following our own path from that point.
Okay, now, if
And
you're
entrepreneurs
listening,
follow their own path.
if you're listening to that, please comment. I want to hear I want to hear comments about that, like, or read comments about that in the podcast. Like, that is because this is all for female entrepreneurs mostly. So, I mean, there might be some other outliers listening, but like, if that's you, I want to hear that. Like, that's fascinating.
So then, I'm sorry, I'm just literally thinking of some of this for the first time, but then how interesting is it to think that perhaps it's our shared traumas that have created the opportunity for us all to grab entrepreneurship and influence the world the way that we can see it being created because we've experienced these things in our past.
Wow. Well, and you know what that's profound. That's super profound. But you know what it makes me think of is something I hear you talk a lot about is this idea of building conscious wealth. And to me, that's your mission. Like that is how you're changing the world through the process you're just talking about. Can you speak to that a little bit because that really helped me. The building conscious wealth. Can you talk about that a little
Absolutely.
bit?
I mean,
Yeah.
that is 100%, my philosophy. And it's why I do this money mindset work with people, with entrepreneurs. And frankly, it's with conscious entrepreneurs who are out there making a difference because I believe that the more we get money in the hands of people who are conscious, who are good-hearted, who are just these amazing, beams of light in the world, the more we elevate the consciousness of the whole planet, the more we change the world. Because each time that we create wealth ourselves, we become a beacon, we become the ripple that moves outwards and changes everything around us. What I mean by that in practical reality is when I make more money, I can pay more fair wages. I can hire people who will make a difference in their communities. I can invest in charities that I care about. I can do things that matter.
Yeah.
I truly believe that there's a paradigm shift between this old industrial revolution, you build wealth on the backs of other people and on their blood,
Yeah.
sweat, and tears, to a conscious revolution of building wealth through equity, through sharing, through collaboration, through community. And when we get more money into the hands of people who believe that and know that and will impact the world with that, the whole freaking world changes.
It's just like mind blowing. It's just mind blowing. That was a huge thing for me. First of all, before I talk about that adjustment for me, I do want to say Ashlee isn't talking about trickle down economics here. She's not talking about that. That comes from the Industrial Revolution. That comes from the patriarchy. That comes from yeah, we promise we'll give you good stuff if you do the bulk of the work. That's not what happened. You're talking, Ashlee, my understanding is you're talking about people who have good hearts, who have full intention of helping people in their business. Like that's why they're going into business is to help people. And then the people they help aren't just their clients or customers or whatever word people use, but also the people that work in the business with them or for them, if you want to use that language, whatever language fits for people. But that's different, right? That you're talking about two different. Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Because when we're coming from this place of I'm building community, I'm building collaboration, not just with the people who I'm serving through
Mm-hmm.
my products and services or whatever it is that I'm bringing to the world, but through the people that I am working with, through the people that I am actually going and purchasing things from, because now I
Mm-hmm.
can purchase from people who are creating things in conscious ways as well. And I can choose where my dollars go towards as well.
Right.
Then it's not about like, oh, well, you'll eventually get, 3 pennies on my dollar. It's about my whole dollar is going to go towards things that I care about and I'm passionate about and that make a difference. And that
Yeah.
means the whole everything changes. Yeah.
And that changes the world. And we need more of that. So if you're listening, you're like, that sounds amazing. Keep listening, because at the end, we're going to talk about how you can work with Ashlee. But, the other thing I want to talk about is when I heard you talk about conscious wealth, that really helped me shift a long-standing money mindset I have, which is that people who are rich or wealthy are sleazy. And I mean, this was truly keeping me stuck because I really saw how it was. It was one of the reasons I came to you. I didn't know what the limiting belief was, but this was the big one for me, one of the big ones, which is that like people who make a lot of money are sleazy and they don't care about others and they're selfish, and that they, maybe they were nice at one point and now they're assholes. And so I wonder if you could talk about that limiting belief a little bit, and because and how that relates to the conscious wealth, because that was huge for me. That was huge for me.
And it is such a huge thing for folks. There's a couple layers there. One is that a lot of times we have these limiting beliefs, and sometimes due to experiences from when we're younger, about people who are greedy and selfish and make money, because we've had experience with people who are greedy and selfish and make money. Let's just be real. Some people are greedy and selfish who have a lot
Yeah.
of money. But let's also be real. There are a crap load of people who have a lot of money and aren't greedy and selfish. There's people like, the Gates, the Warren Buffetts of the world, the Oprahs of the world, who haven't they like all signed a contract that said like they're going to donate a certain percentage of their income, like
Have
once
they?
they pass or something like that? I think they have. Like they're all kind of part of this agreement that they've just said this is all going to be going to charity. This is going to be making a difference in the world. Like there are so many exceptions
Right.
that
Or
can't
like,
be a rule.
yeah. Or like I know Brene Brown and Glennon Doyle and Abby Wambach, they all have sorry, Abby, if you ever listen to this, and I know I butchered your name. But they being hopeful. But they all have I think it's called Together Rising, right? Like they have this organization that they don't take any costs away from the donations. And so, they were helping the people in Maui, and I can't remember who else I mean, there's just like so many people they help, but there are people who have a lot of money who do really wonderful things.
Really wonderful things. And here is the foundational belief that underlies that people who make money are selfish and greedy,
Mhm.
is that it is, you said it, you said maybe they used to be nice, but the money made them that way.
Yeah, that was my
It,
belief.
yep, is that we believe that money changes us. We
Mhm.
believe that money is going to make us into a money hungry monster or ruthless or build on the backs of other people or not care about other people. But here is the truth. And I want you guys to really take this in. Money just makes you more who you actually are.
Say that again.
Money just makes you more of who you really are. It doesn't
Whoa.
make you different. You don't have to be a different person to make money to begin with either, but it just makes you more of who you are.
Wow. Yeah.
And so that means if you're a good person and you've got all this like amazing shit to pour out into the world,
Yeah.
that means that's just going to get even bigger and bolder and even like more profound. And you're going to make a bigger impact and you're going to make so much more, so many more ripples and so much more excitement and so much more passion in your own life and the lives around you, because that's who you are and that's your truth. and money will
Wow.
empower you to do that. It won't make you into something else.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Wow, that is so profound. It's true though. It's true because I think even like of my own self, right? Like like when I have more money, I increase how much I donate places.
Yep.
And I shop a lot less at Amazon when I have more money. Like I do because I don't agree with the way that company functions. Um,
Right. And you don't have to because it's the only thing you can afford or whatever. You can,
right, right.
yep.
I was thinking about that the other day. I was like, like, I don't want to put a limiting belief on anyone, but I was like, it's truly a privilege for me to, I don't remember what it was I was doing, but I was like buying something that was better for the environment than the alternative. And I was like, that is really a privilege that I can have that. What's the word I want? Not value, but principle just to die on. You know what I mean? Like it is in a lot of ways,
Absolutely.
because I think of some of
It
my
empowers
clients.
you.
Yeah.
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 So go
Who
ahead.
I think about some of my clients in my private practice who are, maybe on disability or something like that, who they can't have, they can't, it's like, yeah, Jen, that would be really, I mean, I don't ever suggest that to them, but like, yeah, it would be really nice to, be able to have the no paper towels that I have and just wash them, but they have a disability and so it's too much work. Or it would be really nice to be able to shop at bookshop.org and support, small shop owners. I think a lot of them are Black bookshop owners too. And that'd be great. But if I want a book, I got to get it from Amazon or Walmart. Which is, I'm not judging anyone who does that, and we know that there is not really what seems like conscious wealth to me in those places.
Right. Exactly. And when I think a lot of times we think when we build wealth, we're taking another really big limiting belief. We're taking from other people. We're
Yeah.
taking from other
Yeah.
people to build our own. And instead realizing that actually when we build wealth, when we have something of value to bring to the world, we're actually contributing to the world, not only to the lives of the people that we're of service to, but then to where we spend our dollars.
Right. Right. It's like that whole thing. It's not a pie, right? Like when someone's doing well, that doesn't
Yeah.
mean other people have to do bad. It's not a pie.
Well, and that's the foundation of that lack mindset versus abundance mindset.
Hmm.
Lack comes from the idea that for me to win, someone else has to lose.
Yeah. Yeah.
Abundance comes from the idea that we can all win together.
Yeah. So much of that scarcity mindset to me, and I've got a feeling you're going to agree too, as a trauma therapist, I guess former, because now you're an entrepreneur fully. I see so much of that scarcity mindset. It's not always about money. It's even about time and resources, and let's not go down the political path, but like political bullshit. Like there's so much of the scarcity mindset, and to me, it just looks like people acting out their trauma.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Well, and I mean, you have to think about this will get me on a soapbox. It is a way to keep people in line because people are easier to control when they're afraid.
Yeah. That's totally
And so
true.
when we're
And people are afraid when they feel
afraid of
like there's not enough.
yep, when there's not enough money, not enough resources, not enough love, not enough whatever, we're hoarding and we're siloing
And then instead of working
our resources.
together,
Correct.
we're
Because
working
when we work together,
against.
that's when we're in our power.
Yeah. And then we see it as a pie instead of something we all share and how we can lift each other up. Like those kids going into the circle together to get the fruit, right? Like you've seen that. I don't know if it's a meme or
No,
something. There's a,
I actually don't.
oh,
So.
it's really cool. It's like this thing where there's this group of kids, and I believe they're in Africa. I don't want to assume, but I'm pretty sure they were in Africa. And they put a basket of fruit in the middle, and they said, whoever gets there first gets it. And the kids held hands and all went in together to share the basket of
Oh,
fruit.
that's gonna make me cry.
I know, right? But it's like
Yeah.
those kids, like they get it. It's like we are in this together. It's not a pie. And I'm sure someone's like, well, there was less fruit. One kid could have had more fruit in it. But their point was, you can't enjoy your fruit if your friend next to you is starving.
Well, and the irony is that the fruit's going to go rotten if you hoard it yourself.
Oh, yeah. Oh, boy, I had some thoughts there coming to my head about money hoarding and some of what we see, but that might go down, that might go
Right.
off the rails fast if we go there. So we'll keep it to here,
No,
but
but as a good aside though, that's part of that money flow and that conscious wealth is we spend our money in places that matter to us. We don't hoard it. We don't say, I have to keep this safe because it will never come back, because we have that internal belief in knowing that it is generative because it's always in flow and it's totally abundant, and we actually trust our ability to create that. And
yeah.
so, like you said, not siloing it actually
Yeah.
serves that conscious wealth creation as well.
I wonder if you could speak a little bit to, because as someone with ADHD myself, and I know you're undiagnosed ADHD also, and sometimes I struggle with the difference between when I'm living in the flow of money and abundance and when I am spending when maybe it would not be a good idea.
Mm,
Like,
yeah.
how would I
So,
know the difference?
something that I think a lot about is hedonism versus pleasure.
Ooh, say more about that.
So, hedonism is when we, we're basically, going out there and you're just feeding every whim that you really want, and you're just, like doing whatever you're
Like
eating
gluttony.
potato chips on the couch in your underwear because that's what feels really good at this moment, right? But does that actually feel good? What is the effects of that choice? Is it actually pleasurable tomorrow when I've spent all day in my underwear eating potato chips yesterday? Do I feel good tomorrow? Does
Probably not.
tomorrow me get to benefit from that? Or does today me just eating potato chips right at the second only the one that benefits from that? When we
Mm.
understand sort of the breadth of and the depth of our choices, and we
Mhm.
become aware of like how they impact us not just this second but also in the next second, we actually become empowered to make choices which fulfill true pleasure instead of just this hedonistic, in this second potato chips in my underwear is the thing that feels really good, even though tomorrow I feel like crap because I ate so much salt and my feet are all swollen up or whatever might be happening to you.
Yeah. Or even
So
like,
something that I often,
yeah,
sorry,
go
go ahead.
ahead. No, you go ahead.
I was going to say something that I often ask myself is how can I do tomorrow me a favor?
Yes, I love talking about future self. That's one of my favorite things with ADHD is if I think about my future self. Yeah, how can I do tomorrow me a favor? Yeah. I like that
So like
because
when it
it
comes to like investing in yourself, like
yeah,
investing in yourself today might feel scary, and it might be like, well, this isn't the most pleasurable thing. Going to buy a, $200 worth of stuff at Target is more fun. Well, maybe right now, but will I actually have pleasure from that over the
no,
next month, over the next year, for the rest of my life?
right.
No, but from this investing in myself, I will, because suddenly everything else feels easier and more fun and more generative and more passionate, and wow.
Right. Or like last night I was looking at I was on Stitch Fix, but I didn't like what I saw, so I was on some other similar thing and I was like, "Oh, this is cute." I'm like, "I could get that." And I'm like, we're just gonna sit on it. We're gonna sleep on it. Cause you know what? Like, we really want to get our house recited over here. I mean, when I say we, I mean me and the kitties, my cats. But I really want to get my house sited. And yeah, it'd be nice to have a shirt or two. But like, if I do that, then I'm farther away from my intention of getting my house sited.
Yeah. And I think, and you're not saying this, but I can feel it sort of in what you're saying, is that like we need to be able to slow down and actually
Mhm.
check in with ourselves. Are
Yeah,
we
that's
just in
why I
that moment
slept
of
on
like,
it.
yeah,
That's why I
or am I
slept on
in the
it.
moment? This feels really right and really good for us. And so, particularly for people with ADHD, because we tend to be really impulsive,
Hmm.
it's important to slow the decision making process down. Put stuff in
Yes.
your target, think about it, and then go the next day to purchase it. And if you still want it, then go get it.
You know what I used to do is even if I didn't find it on Amazon, I would put it on my Amazon wish list. And if I was still actively thinking about it a month later, I mean, depending on what my finances look like, obviously, like, but if I was still thinking about it a month later and how it would help me or how I wanted it for whatever reason and it was solid, then I would go do it. And do you know how many times that happened?
Yeah.
0. That happened 0 times. 0. And I'm talking, I've been doing
Yep.
this for I've been doing this at least since 2015. So that's what, 8 years, 8.5 years?
I love that technique. That's great.
That
Another
was,
one I
yeah.
like, I don't always think about, but if you're actually in a shop, is asking yourself, if I have to wait half an hour to check out, is this worth my time to purchase this thing?
Ooh, that's a good one.
Right?
I like that.
It's how many times are you just like, oh, I can't be bothered if it takes that long? Well, then you didn't really want it,
You
did
didn't
you?
really want it. It was just, ooh, I like that. I like that
Yeah.
because the only thing I would do that for is pants. I'm short, so I got short legs. I sit tall because I'm long waisted, but if I find pants that fit me, I will stand in line for pants. But like a top, oh my gosh, no way. I'd be like, screw it, I get a top. So I'll go Target, get a top there. Like that's a
Totally.
good one. Well, my big one for places like that, when I go shopping, I need help. I'm not very good at picking out things for myself, thus the Stitch Fix kind of things. But a lot of times, then the people have fun dressing me up. And then they're like, oh, so I'll just go put all these right up for you to pay for them. I'm like, and I used to get in the trap of then buying it all because I felt pressure because they had helped me pick everything out. And so what I learned to do was say, you know what? Thank you so much for your help. I'm going to go check out some other stores and I'll be back to let you know which options I'm going to take. But if I'm not back by 5 o'clock or whatever, go ahead and take them off hold. And they may not have liked me for that, but that's not really my issue. I did it. And then I was able to go back and say, like, hey, I'd like this piece and this piece and the rest I'd like you to put away, and just proactively say it rather than having to say no in the moment in a way that didn't feel right. You know what I mean?
Right. Or say yes in the moment because you were really excited because it did all look really cute, even though you have one or two of the items at home already.
Right. Yes, I do own quite a few of the same shirts. If you know me for
Right.
any
I do.
length of time, you'll notice that.
But I mean, I think it speaks to, and I know you work with your clients a lot about this, and I do as well, about this nervous system regulation, about feeling really from that calm and relaxed place when we make these
Yeah.
decisions for ourselves,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah. And that can be hard to do when we're overstimulated by trying on clothes and having people be excited about our fun outfits and them getting to dress us up, and that can make it like Mount Everest for us to say no. So cuz we're not feeling super regulated.
Right. Absolutely. And that's why
Yeah.
it's so important. I always, like you said, take a night to sleep on it. Come
Yeah.
from a calm place, even if you feel like it's because we don't realize money is about earning money, but money is also about the way we spend money. And so sometimes when we're excited because the salesperson is excited and all of this stuff, we just need to take a step back and say, is this actually what I want, or am I just caught up in this excitement because I really like excitement?
Yeah, right, cuz ADHD we're like, excitement, I get excitement, give me excitement. I want excitement.
Right? It's a party. Right. Oh wait, I didn't want to go to this party.
Well, and especially, okay, now here we go. We're going to loop back. But especially if us ADHD entrepreneurs, if it's true that a lot of us are the ones that weren't super popular, and then we're trying stuff on in a store. I mean, this comes up for me, and then people are like, oh, yeah. And who knows if they're totally bullshitting me, but they sound right. They sound real, So so then that sucks in other parts of us, right? Like, holy moly.
It does. And then if we go back to being an entrepreneur in terms of that valuing, that's why we get caught up in thinking things like, well, how much money I have is my value. Or how many people
Right.
are responding to my Instagram reel is my value, is all of these external things because of that little stuff that happened when we were 15 years old that we don't think has anything to do with being an entrepreneur, having it or money.
Right. I think that's important for all of us to hear today to hear, because I think that impacts us all. A lot of the people I work with who are ADHD entrepreneurs, they struggle with that. They struggle with valuing themselves. sometimes even struggle with putting time into their business, like that, like thinking that they are worth their own time.
Mhm.
And whether that's like
Wow.
signing up for a program to help them, or whether it's like even getting themselves to their office to work on their business. Right.
Hmm.
I think it's really common. A lot of ADHD women, especially, tend to be helper types. And, and as such, I mean, I think a lot of women are actually, not all, that's a sweeping generalization for sure. But I think a lot of times, especially with ADHD, and the hard part about being a helping type is then we often forget to help ourselves, or maybe don't forget, but we get into a mindset of thinking we don't believe it, right? And some of that can even go back to that 15-year-old trying to be valued and appreciated by being helpful.
100%. I like to call this the reverse golden rule. Do unto yourself as you would do unto others.
Right. That's so true. That's so
Yeah.
true.
Because
Huh.
I think you and I both work with those kinds of people that tend to overgive to the point of depletion because
Totally.
that's how they value. Yep.
It's
That's how
totally
they value
true.
themselves.
I mean, that's why both of us end up working on burnout with people.
Mm.
But last week's
Oh, yeah.
episode was on burnout because it was like, that's something I'm seeing a lot is so many people with ADHD are burned out, but they're burned out because they're giving and giving and giving and giving and not doing enough. I mean, this is even something my first guest and I talked about. They're not doing enough things that light them up,
Yeah.
you
And
know?
ironically, talking about looping, this actually speaks to where we started, which was these top limiting beliefs people have, is that's the other big foundational one is I have to work really, really hard. It has to be difficult. I have to work myself to the bone. I have to sacrifice myself in order to make more money and in order to be successful. And as long as we have those beliefs, guess what? That's what it's going to be. We're going to work ourselves to the bone. We're going to sacrifice ourselves. We're going to burn out in order to create the things we want. And our subconscious mind is going to go, we don't want to do that. So instead of
Right.
doing that, we're just going to not make the money. We're not going to have the success. We're going to put the handbrake on,
There's the income
self
ceiling.
sabotage, procrastinate,
Yeah.
income ceiling, all of those things.
Right. So if someone is finding themselves doing that, having these limiting beliefs, like what's one thing? I mean, I'm going to recommend your program. I'm just going to say that, y'all. Like, I'm going to have Ashlee tell us a little bit about Empowering Wealth because it it was life changing for me. It was business changing for me. So, like, I think it's important that you check it. It, at least look into it for goodness sakes. But I can't recommend it enough. It's really helpful. It's a lovely community. Of most, I think it's is it just meant for
It's
women?
all women.
Oh, it is. Okay.
Yep.
Like I didn't know if it was
Yep.
intentionally all women or if it's just that's who you attract, but it's this lovely community of women who are just so authentic and supportive and able to be vulnerable and receive and give feedback in warm, loving, compassionate ways. And I can't recommend it enough. And I want to unpack that a little bit here in a second, but is there any, like, if you were going to say, like, one thing, if someone was going to go try and shift one thing this week they were going to work on to help their money mindset, what would you tell them to start to do?
Well, I think a lot of people tend to talk about, the limiting beliefs, the thoughts, the things like that. I think the simplest, fastest, easiest thing to do is the nervous system piece. Is if you
Ah,
can, before you sit and look at your bank account, actually come from a place where you feel grounded, calm, and relaxed, you're going to be able to have a much more, I don't want to say opportunistic because that sounds weird, but you're going to have a much better approach to your money. So here's what I mean. If you come into looking at your books, looking at your bank account, and every time you're coming from this place of, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God, stress, stress, worry, worry, tension, tightness, contraction, what's going to happen is the fight or flight response literally takes the blood out of your brain and you're going to make bad decisions. You're
whoa.
not going to see opportunities. You're not going to be creative. You're going to make decisions based on panic, based on anxiety, and based on worry, which aren't going to be serving you. They're just going to be trying to help you survive. And surviving
Wow.
is not what we want to do with money. We want to thrive. So if you
Yeah.
can just calm your nervous system before you look at your bank account, before you pay your bills,
Yeah.
do some breathing exercises, something very simple that takes
Yeah.
5 minutes,
Yeah.
like trauma-centered yoga that you do with folks,
Yeah.
like that really
Yeah.
helps you ground.
Yeah.
And then you approach your money, your creativity is open. Your mind is
Yeah.
open to shit. You can see things in a better way, that you're not coming out of this sense of panic of, oh my God, I've got to survive. And you might see new bridges of opportunity to help you create a new income stream, to help you bring in money that you didn't know, to help you shift a price that you weren't even thinking about, because you're open. So
Wow.
that is the simplest thing that somebody can
Oh,
do
that's
today, because
amazing.
it talks about,
That's amazing.
yeah,
That's huge. And if you're listening and you're like, how do I regulate my nervous system? The good news is we actually have a podcast episode all about that. So check out the past episodes. I talk about it in a few of them actually, but one in particular. So make sure you check that out, or you could always sign up for, to work with me, or Ashlee, because we both work a lot with the nervous system. So Ashlee, before we go here, I'd love it if you could speak a little bit about your program, Empowering Wealth. It has been life changing for me. It's been business changing for me. And I'm only like halfway through. And so I wonder if you could just talk a little bit about it. And then we can also share how people can find you. Uh, I think it's a great service to people. It's a really great service to people, and especially to this ADHD entrepreneur community. I think it's really an essential service. So if you could share a little bit about it, I'd appreciate that.
absolutely. And I love that it's made such a profound effect, in your business and in your life. And I find that across the board is that what happens is that people actually experience transformational, deep levels of change with this program, because it's not just about money mindset, which is about changing the way you think, or think positive, or create a vision board, or do a mantra. All
Yeah.
of that is great, but that's like that's like, I want to build a house and I've got a hammer.
Yeah.
Hammers are great tools, but we need the plan, and we need to put down the foundation, and we need to understand what it is that we're building. And so what we do in Empowering Wealth is, we do, like we were just talking about, we do that nervous system regulation. We actually look at trauma and chronic stress and how it has actually impacted our relationship with money, the stories that we're telling ourselves about money, the beliefs that we have about money, the stuck emotions, because we don't even realize that we'll have like anger around the way we've spent money in the past, and that will get in the way of us bringing in more money in the future. And who we actually are is this person who is conscious and will do amazing things with wealth. And it's just going to make us more of who we are, and that we're enough and we're deserving of that wealth now. Because the way I look at it is, we are either in one of two modes. We're either in this stressed out response, where we get stressed out about money and we get triggered from the beliefs of the past, and these thoughts come up that say, I can't have this, or if I have this, it's all going to get taken away from me. And we get tighter and tighter and more constricted. And that feeds into this stress response. And the stress response makes us tighter and tighter and more constricted and more worried. Or we learn how to relax and come from this place of pleasure and fun and play, and this place of, this isn't who I am. This isn't going to make me into something else. This is so nourishing, not just for myself, but for the world. And wow, this feels so fun. This feels so good. And then we become relaxed and we see opportunities to make more money, and then more money comes into our life, and it's the totally different energy. So it's like a spring, contracting and binding up, or this big expansive energy of like, I have a huge container and I can welcome in more anytime I want.
Which is so lovely. It's so lovely. So if people want to find you, I know you're on Instagram at Dr. Dot, and doctor is just DR, correct? Yeah.
Yes.
Dr. Greer. And Ashlee has two E's and Greer has two E's. And we figured out that she's how we say it? You're
I'm
Ashlee
full of ease.
E's, or you're full of ease. You're full of ease. That's right. She's full of ease, because Ashlee's all about like, how can this be easy? How can this be joyful? How can this be pleasurable? Find Ashlee, who's full of ease, at Dr. Greer, ASHLEEGREEG.
Sorry.
Yeah, I'll put it in the show notes. It's just easier that way. But that'll be in the show notes. So I also want to say, if you're listening, if you're not following yet, please follow this podcast. I would love that. Make sure you check out also, you can follow me on social media. That's also in the show notes. And comment on what came up for you in this. I think this was a profound conversation. I would love to hear your ahas from it. Make sure you comment and, of course, share with everyone you know. So I just want to thank you, Ashlee, for being here. You're a really special guest for me because you're not only a friend, but you're an expert that I really respect and I've received a lot of help from. And this was so special. So thank you so much for being here.
It's been such an honor, Jen, and I just delight in talking with you every single time. You have so much brilliance to share with the world, and
Oh,
I love every second of it.
I feel the same way. So thank you so much. And again, if you're not following, please follow, and I'll catch you next time. Take care.